Hey there, welcome to another Tesla Motors Club podcast. My name is Lewis.
I'm Doug.
And I'm Mike.
In today's episode, we're going to cover, finally, our hands-on experiences with FSD Beta version 11. There's also some updates to the EV tax credits going forward, a new survey out by Bloomberg about Model 3 owners, and Mike is going to review some tires for us. All that and more. Episode 38 starts now. Hello, gentlemen. How are we today?
Oh,
Well, it's a fine day here in Southern California. It's dry for a change.
Excellent.
yeah. I've been in Northern California for the past few weeks. I came out here for a ski trip, and somehow I'm still here. Haven't gone back east
Can't
yet.
get rid of you.
And the weather's been pretty nice lately. You know, I was here. There's a time it was very windy. You know, we had that atmospheric river come through, and I was actually without power for
We've had like
days.
12. I mean, pick one.
Well, the one maybe before the last one, and yeah, I had no power for a few days because you know,
See, if only you had a Tesla Powerwall, you would have been set.
yeah, that would have helped here. It was very sort of localized power outages because you know, the rain, you know, softened up the ground, and like actual large tall trees got blown over with their roots coming out of the ground. So that was pretty intensive. So
Hopefully your car is okay.
My car is back on the East Coast. It's still sitting there. I meant to cover it before I left, and I was running late for my plane. And I was like, oh, I'll only be gone a week, and you know, it's no big deal. And now it's been a month, and so my car is still sitting there. I'm like, oh man.
Like I said, auto summon, band. Auto summon, yeah.
Auto summon. Maybe we'll come to that topic a little bit.
New York to LA, right? You're supposed to be able to do that.
Hey, it was promised.
It was
at some
promised.
point, I'm sure, and I did actually do the update. You know, the FSD 11.3 update. I was able to do it on my phone, and I was like, okay, great.
You just can't do anything with it.
And I was like, hey, I should be able to. Like, I've been you know, borrowing cars for the past couple weeks. You know, why can't I have my own car come to me? I believe that was promised.
Should have rented one on Turo. So speaking of that, so the news, obviously, FSD version 11 has gone wide.
Yep.
So if you are a hardware 3 or 4 car, possibly 4, actually. I say that now thinking they're on a separate software branch, so I don't think they actually have version 11, but they might. But hardware 3 at least has gone wide, where thousands and thousands of cars have been updated according to the software trackers. We now have version 11, which we've been waiting for. Elon has promised it for several years now, is the unified FSD stack. So the new models, the neural nets are now controlling the decision making of your car, not just doing the perception of identifying objects. Very exciting stuff. I drove it a fair bit yesterday. I know, Mike, you drove with it over the weekend. So I'm going to go to you first, Mike. How is it? What's your first? So I'll preface. There's been pros and cons, or positive and negative feedback. So if you read online,
there has been.
Some people are saying it's great, it's amazing, it's so much better. Some people are saying this is the worst version they've had in months, and they want, you know, the old versions. So we'll go to you, Mike. How do you feel? What's been your experience?
So I've been closely following this on Twitter, as everybody's been posting their various experiences and, you know, little video clips and whatnot. And there really seemed to be a big divide. Half were saying it was great, and half were saying it was junk. And they were pretty blatant about it. So I got my update yesterday afternoon, and I got it all installed. I took the car out last night, and I took it out this morning. I wanted to try both night and day because I have seen differences in the past.
Sure.
And my personal experience, 1 step forward, 8 steps back.
That's not good.
Well, so I will say my experience on the freeway has been good. It seems to be more stable in the lane, following the straight line. Anything other than that, it kind of goes sideways a little bit. It got the off ramp correct, but it didn't read the speed limit on the off ramp. So it tried to take the off ramp at 65 instead of the 40 that it should have been. It missed a red light. It was in a outside left turn lane, making the left turn, and then decided, no, I don't want to be in the outside. I'm just going to cut across and go on the inside. So, I mean, if there had been a car there, it had been literally, I would have sideswiped the car, you know. I was sitting at a light, literally stopped. Blinker comes on and the steering wheel starts spinning because the car is trying to make a turn at the stoplight. so I'm a little concerned.
I've never seen that before.
The process a little shaky right now.
Well, you know, I've had the time where traffic had slowed, and this is, you know, whatever stack, but traffic had slowed, and so we're just sort of waiting for traffic to move, and the car decides, oh, I'm not dealing with this, and it like tries to go around everybody. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, you need to chill.
So I've noticed there is a button on the dash, a menu item that you can say minimize lane changes for this drive only, which really pisses me off, because historically the car has always tried to change lanes way too much for my taste. I typically want to put the car in the lane. I just want to leave it there because it's just better. And it will do that now with the button set, except when it disengages, it seems to reset that button. Now you got to screw around with the dash and try to put the button
on
back.
Navigate on Autopilot. That's been a regular thing where you can say the aggression of changing lanes.
This is not aggression. This is not aggression. This is literally minimize lane change.
I mean, but this was related to lane change, and it was I forget what
they still have that setting.
Again, the highest setting was Mad Max, right?
That's right.
I forget what
the
other ones were called,
which I never really wanted to try.
Yeah, I've never tried it either. But isn't that, you know, shouldn't that be able to adjust?
I've tried it, and it still wants to change. And so what I had happen yesterday is I had basically told the car, take me to Target store, which is like 4 miles away. And I got within 100 feet of the entrance of the store, and it tried to change lanes to the right, even though it was going to go left in 100 feet, and I'm in stop and go traffic. I don't know what made it think it needed to change lanes, but it had no business changing lanes. You know, not with a turn coming up in 100 feet.
Well, let me ask, you know, you mentioned a bunch of things. Let me ask about the running a red light, because that sounds like the worst one to me. The other ones sound like
they're annoying. The red light was scary.
Yeah, running the red light sounds like something it shouldn't do, even on previous versions. So what was the situation there?
It was a standard 4-way intersection. It leads up to a freeway, and it's always stopped before. With all the other versions I've tried, I've never had an issue with this intersection. For whatever reason, this time I'm coming down the hill, because it's down a hill and the light's at the bottom of the hill, and it never slowed down, and it apparently wasn't going to stop. I ended up stepping on the brake, disengaging, and stopping in the last 10 feet. It's 40 miles an hour, so it wasn't like, slide through the intersection, but it wasn't going to stop. So I don't know if it didn't see the light or it just ignored it.
Did you see the light in the
it did show in the graphic. It did show in the graphic as a red dot. So the graphic saw the light. And it's the only time it's done it in the last 2 days. And I've tried to repeat it. I haven't been able to repeat that particular issue. So, all it takes is once, though.
The city street stuff is still, a little bit iffy for me. I mean, my car is updated, but I haven't been able to drive it yet.
Right.
The one thing that concerns me is, the experience that I've been, pretty okay with has been the Navigate on Autopilot, the basic highway driving. And now that it's a single stack, and my concern is that experience being degraded. So what is your experience on the highway, basically?
It's the same, perhaps a bit better on the highway. I haven't seen anything major other than the way it was handling the freeway off ramp. But as far as lane changes go, it's smooth on the lane change. I mean, it was kind of herky jerky before when it would do its lane change, a little aggressive. And now it seems to smooth that out a little bit, a little more human-like, if you want to call it that. I did have an incident. I've got this on video, and I'll probably put it up on YouTube later. But leaving my neighborhood, I was making a right turn, or it was making a right turn. Cars next to me, parked on the side of the road. A car came towards me unexpectedly over what you would call the center. Now, there's no lines on the road. It's just one big wide road. The car basically went into freak out mode and tried to go to the right to get away from that car over the center line, except there's a car parked there. And it literally came within about an inch of the car parked. And I disengaged and pushed it back and just stopped the car. I wasn't willing to see how far it would have gone with that. But in a perfect world, it would have just stepped on the brakes and stopped, not try to drive over somebody else's car. So
interesting.
Overall,
do you think it was better though? Like overall, do you think it's better than what you had before?
No,
so
not
on the highway.
City.
You said
on the highway, yes. In the highway, okay. I think it's better. In my neighborhood and the city I live in, the answer is no. And that kind of goes with what I've seen on Twitter, because most of the video clips I've seen on Twitter, people are either on really well-marked, heavily defined roads, and they're saying how great it is. And the folks that are complaining tend to be on older roads, not quite so well-marked, not so defined. There seems to be some issues there.
Let me ask you about that left turn you mentioned, where it decided to cut over. Sometimes there's a nice little dotted line letting you know where to go.
I have that
there or not. That was there, and it's still cut
and it's
over.
Made this turn before. This is part of my normal turn to leave the neighborhood to get into town. The last two stacks I've had have always made this turn successfully, although a little hesitantly and sometimes a little jerky on the wheel, but it's always stayed in its lane. This is the first time it went out of its lane rather abruptly.
So I think as I've seen some folks online say some similar things, where people have mentioned things like it's gone through a red light, or it tried to turn into traffic out of its lane, or some other things. Yeah. But again, not everyone's experienced that. Some folks,
it did stop for yellow lights, so they fixed that.
Interesting.
But I'll be giving it more of a shakedown drive in the next couple of days. I got to go back down to San Diego, so that's like 100 and something miles each way. And we'll see what happens on that.
But I think we should be clear with some folks, because I'm just seeing comments and things in the chat. So version 11, there's a big difference here versus what we've seen in some previous versions. And what I mean by the difference, what I mean is currently, so there was a version 11.3.1, 11.3.2, 11.3.3. 0.4 just came out like 2 days ago. It was like on the end of Thursday or into Friday. And there's also an 11.3.5. So where much of the discrepancy appears to be, or the disagreement in people online, is between 0.3 and 0.4, like the newer than 0.3. So if you've had version 11 for a week, you, for the most part, probably feel a better experience, or you've seen a better experience, at least from what I've read of people online. 11.4, which has only been out for like 2 days, that's the one where a lot of people seem to have issues with it. That's the one that Mike was driving with.
Yep.
It's also the one that I've been driving with. And to basically give my perception of it, I think it is better in some areas and much, much worse in others. So I would maybe say similar to Mike's, step forward, 8 steps back. But it depends on what you're doing. My own personal perception of what I think is going on is it looks like the perception model, like the thing that identifies objects, sees the roads, understands where the lines are. That seems to be way better in version 11. Like, I feel like they've done really good improvements there. Where I feel like it's much worse for me is the decision making of like how the car actually is controlling what it's doing. So again, driving 11.3.4 yesterday, I did about 50 miles. I just checked the numbers. So it's about 50 miles around Austin, driving from one side of Austin to the other side, some on the highway, some on the, the side streets and things between. And what I found was, again, it visualized things much nicer, and it, the new visuals in the car are very good. And how it perceived things was great. But it did a lot of things like very jerky motions of like, oh, I'm going to try to center myself in this lane. So it's like driving and it's like jerk to the left, jerk to the right, jerk to the left, jerk to the right, like really fast, like abrupt, non-human like modes of behavior. I experienced that to the point where my wife was like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, she thought there was a problem. with the
So
car.
riddle me this, Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
I know in Texas you've got some great roads for this particular incident.
Sure.
So on the older stack, when I was in Arizona last week, I had a lot of phantom braking issues with what you would call a mirage, where you've got that lake effect that takes place on a long flat highway at certain times of the day.
Mhm.
And the car literally couldn't seem to make up its mind what that
Mhm.
was all about. So it would just slam on the brakes. Have you
So
seen that on yours yet? Or
no, so this was in traffic, like going,
okay.
I had it happen when I was going like maybe 10 miles an hour in traffic on a road, and then I also had it going like 50 miles an hour, 45 to 50, again in traffic that there's cars around me on each side. I'm in a lane, everything is well marked, and it still did it. So I was very confused at why I was doing that, but it was interesting. I also experienced so I went through and updated all the settings. For those that don't know, they added a lot of cool new settings for how you can,
Yep,
tweak things.
they
And
did.
so, for example, now part of the NHSTA's uh,
Fix
uh,
the
recall,
recall.
the recall that they had, you're no longer allowed to set it to say like I want over, I want to be 10 miles over or I want to be 15 miles per hour over. They don't allow you to do that anymore. You have to do it as a percentage. So they still have the option in the UI, but it like doesn't work. It doesn't let you save it. So if you do the percentage over, which I did, you can set to something like 15% over, kind of mimics like 10 miles over at highway speeds, things like that. And what I found was when I was transitioning from not being on the highway to like being on the highway, the car updated the speed. It knew that the speed should increase, but it didn't actually increase the maximum speed of my car. So, like, when you turn on autopilot, it sets like this is the maximum speed it's going to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Normally, that adjusts based on the speed changing. My car didn't do that. So, it was on the highway saying speed limit's 65. With my settings, it should have been trying to go 75, and it actually left the speed limit to like 45, and I was going very slow on the highway until I forced the car to go because people
Now,
behind me were very unhappy.
do you find that the acceleration tends to be more slow off the line now? That's been my
um
experience. I've had to step on the accelerator much more now than I used to.
So I used to not have to step on the accelerator. And so this was an experience of me having to do it. I used to do a little bit, but not a lot. So yeah, I would agree. It seems like I have to do it more now
Yeah.
with the new model. But with my problem was it didn't seem like it was trying to accelerate and doing it slowly. It just wasn't even trying in this particular scenario, which I was surprised with. But yeah, so all in all, I can't say about the general usage just because I only had the one or technically two drives per round trip. But it was pretty unpleasant for that portion. I also on the highway. So again, I usually do when I do drive, do a fair bit of highway driving for around the city because for those that don't know, Texas is a lot of highways. The Normally Navigate on autopilot, the old system that Doug mentioned, right? That worked great. Like I used to
Yeah.
turn on Navigate on autopilot and I could shut off my brain until I was off the highway. Like I didn't because of safety reasons, but so don't do that.
Hands on the wheel, man.
But
Hands on
like
the wheel.
literally,
Eyes on the roads, kid.
I've done, over 1,000 miles on the Texas highway with NOA, Navigate on autopilot, and not had a problem like almost ever. I think I've had maybe one or two incidents in like 10 months of driving it. So for the most part, though, it was no problem. This was awful. It would frequently think that somebody was going slower than me, which the visualization was great. It now tells you like, hey, I think they're going slower. It would slam on the brakes, like not like they're not. I'm not about to rear end someone. They're farther up ahead. Like you have time
Right.
to just slowly ease off and coast. Didn't slowly ease off and coast. It would go, that car's going a little bit slower than you. I'm going to decelerate right now, because like to the point where like the seatbelts lock and you like jerk forward. It did that to me about 3 times. My wife, in the car with me, and she was like yelling at me, like, "What are you doing? Are you driving like an idiot?" And I'm just like, "It wasn't
Not
me.
this time.
It's the
Not
car."
this time.
So that was a problem. And then also a thing that it's never done wrong with Navigate on autopilot, it completely went to miss one of my exits. So I have a highway that I take an exit to another highway. So it's like a ramp that goes around.
Yeah.
I take it all the time. It's literally the way that I get to downtown Austin. And basically it navigate on the map. It's like, yeah, we're going to go right. And it just was driving right past it. I literally had to disengage, jerk the wheel, and drive in the shoulder, like over the white lines to not miss the exit, because it was like, see ya, I'm just going to keep going. So those are like pretty awful experiences on the highway that I've never had with Navigate on autopilot. So for me, I felt like it's a pretty big step backwards for the highway, at least where I live with my car.
Well, let me ask you, Lewis. You said so you feel like the decision making was worse. Now that's one of the things that was supposed to have changed, right? Instead of using a more algorithmic decision making, it's using the neural nets. We were sort of surprised because we thought it was probably already doing that, but it wasn't yet. So is that what's going on? Is that the neural nets aren't quite there yet? At least they haven't tweaked the parameters yet to do a good job with that decision making?
I mean, so definitely the big change now is the neural nets are doing some of the decision making. I don't know if they're doing all of it, but they're certainly doing a decent portion of it. Whereas before, what came out from what Elon said is they weren't doing it at all, which we didn't realize. So yeah, there's definitely a big change in how the decision making is happening. And clearly for some people it's working great, right? And I almost don't want to say that this is a version 11 problem. It really feels like it's a version 11.3.4 problem, because I saw multiple people that were on version, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 that loved it and raved about it, and then got 0.4 and said, this sucks. It's way worse. Let me go back to 0.3.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's necessarily the models shouldn't be controlling the car. I think they probably should be. I feel like it is maybe some parameter change or something that changed in this particular point release is worse. And it's a little bit concerning because 11.1, or 3.1, 0.2, and 0.3 didn't go wide to everybody. The OG testers got it. The internal folks had it. They went a little bit wider to some more people, but it didn't go wide to like everybody until 0.4, which is where it seemed like a ton more people got that version. And this seems to be the version that sucks compared to the other ones. So anyway, it was very that part's a little concerning. But
well, that 0.5 version seemed to come kind of quickly. So
it was like
okay. So 0.5 is actually not for the same cars as what it appears like. What people seem to believe is that 0.4 and 0.5 are basically the same thing, but 0.5 is for the cars that don't have ultrasonic sensors, so that they can do the parking assist, I believe. Whereas
seems to be a real disaster
is generally for cars that have the ultrasonic sensors. Or if you get until you get 0.5 without ultrasonics, you can't do the vision based parking assist. So I think so what it appears like is 0.5 is really 0.4, but for non-ultrasonic cars. But yeah, they came out like within hours of each other. It was very close.
That vision-based parking seems to be a real disaster from everything I've seen on Twitter. The accuracy isn't there, and there's been numerous video clips of the car actually touching something, and the car is saying, "Oh, they've got 20 inches before it touches."
Sure. I mean, that's going to be the vision only is going to be a while until it catches up to the ultrasonic level, right? Like I'm still in the camp that I feel like mostly Elon's right, that the majority of the time the cameras will work sufficiently. You don't need to have ultrasonics.
Yeah.
But
unless they're rained on.
There are scenarios.
Yeah.
There's clearly scenarios where ultrasonics will be an advantage. Will they add them back? Who knows? Radar, right? So radar, they removed it. Said radar,
it's coming
useless.
back. Yeah.
It's coming back in hardware 4, right? So they've now added radar back in. So I mean, will ultrasonics come back in the future? Maybe, but certainly for the time being, I don't think. I don't know. We'll have to see how the software.
So funny you should mention that, because a part of my trip I went to Tombstone, and where we stayed.
I've seen the movie.
Well, Tombstone's an interesting place, but the ranch we stayed at was on like this 4-mile dirt road. And by the time I got to the ranch, I was getting alerts on my dash about obscured cameras, obstructed camera from all the dust buildup.
Sure.
So,
need little squeegees,
something,
little wipers out there.
But I mean,
it's just not snow.
if we're going to talk a little bit about vision versus ultrasonics, I mean, there have been some videos and people doing tests, right? I mean, clearly there's stuff the cameras can't see from where they are. And I tend to think it was kind of nuts to remove the ultrasonic sensors now, even with the idea of like, oh, we're gonna do it with vision. I think it would have only made sense to do that when they made that progression. And Mike thinks I'm a broken record on this, but with having the camera in the in the bumper
to the front for you.
Yeah, just put them there, and it looks
Right
like
on
they've
the nose.
already. It looked like they've already made that decision, at least from the hints we've had with the Hardware 4, that they're going to have a camera in the nose or in the bumpers. So, well, why save $100 per car on this and have another branch, for your software when they should just kept them in. I don't really understand the decision process, and certainly some decision process had a timing element in terms of thinking where the software would be. But even with that issue, I think maybe there was a change in decision where they realized, okay, well, actually, we do need to change the hardware. And I think they should have just waited till that, because I certainly I'm glad I have the ultrasonic sensors. They do help with the parking, especially since there's no camera in the nose. And once they actually put those cameras there, then maybe we can actually have a direct comparison. But there is no way, and people have done this test. Some people with their own kids, which I don't even understand. That's
not smart.
Test to put in their kid. I mean, you could have used a box or something. Don't need to.
Some people don't like their kids, Doug.
That's right.
Yeah, this is true. So yeah. But anyway, sure, you can, the car is parked or you're just stopped and some kid walks there, and there's definitely blind spots, especially right in front of the car. And it's going to say you're free and clear. So
I've got a neighbor who bought a new Model 3 Performance. He had it for a week and he took it back, specifically because of the lack of sensors. And, he and his wife were just tired of trying to guess where they were at, relative to the curb, relative to the front, whatever.
Right. And the worst thing about this to me is, okay, Tesla, they can make their own decisions, but they don't exist in a vacuum. They certainly are still the best electric car, I think, in my opinion. But if we're talking about cars in the same price range, luxury cars, they got tons of cameras around, they got the radar, they got the ultrasonic sensors, they got the bird's eye view. Pretty much everybody else has this, and Tesla has yet to deliver that. And I don't really understand what they're sitting on their hands on about that. I mean, why remove something that everybody else has? You can make an argument that, oh, well, we don't need it because we have other systems that will compensate for it. But
not so much.
come on. People want their features, and you're trying to sell an expensive car. Include those features. If you're only saving $100, but you're going to sell more cars, so sell those cars.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think the problem right now is Tesla isn't going to sell another car, right? They're at this point, they're still basically, supply side limited. They're selling the cars that they're making. So does it, so basically for them to save money per car is still infinitely better than, oh, we might have more people interested in buying the car. Well, okay, well, they wouldn't sell more cars anyway.
They sell all the ones they make now.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
But there are other dimensions too, right? Like customer satisfaction. And and I wish,
which is irrelevant if they're selling all the cars that they make, isn't it?
It shouldn't be irrelevant. And
from
the Tesla Motors Club TMC point of view, we're advocates for the customer, and give the people what they want. Don't take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested if Hardware 4 does manage to fix some of these things, right? The additional camera places and stuff like that. It'll depend a lot on how interested I am in upgrading to a newer car versus just seeing if I can retrofit it myself, right? Like, they're not going to offer a retrofit kit, but I have no problem. Mike loves to take them apart and tinker.
Absolutely.
I'll take it apart and tinker. I'll run new wires. I'll drill holes. I'll do whatever. So that'll be interesting to see if that ever comes
I hear an
to pass.
Opportunity here.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm still waiting for my car to come to me.
Yeah.
Your car to come to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
When this shows up, you let us know.
Yeah. So we'll see if it ever makes it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it won't be able to do it in the current hardware stack. So, will Hardware 4 be able to do it? Do the promise?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Time will tell. So
Indeed.
before we move on to our next topic, I just have to ask, though, I was just thinking about it. I assume that you two saw the Cybertruck April Fool's video clip.
Oh yeah.
Oh, where it almost had a crash test.
Yes. Okay. Did that trigger you both? Oh man, I was. Oh, it was brilliant.
laughing. I was laughing when I saw it.
Okay.
I got it like within the second time. I was like, okay, we did that angle already, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're gonna leave us with blue appendages. I get it. So
yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry. I cracked up when I saw it. I had to tell my wife, and she, of course, probably didn't care. But
I mean,
you know,
it was interesting though, right? Because you have the sense that okay, they actually did do a crash test, which should mean that okay, is this the production
vehicle? Actually, yeah.
And that okay, there's actual progress being made. So that there is information conveyed.
Yes.
They just left us hanging is the thing. So we'll see hopefully in the next couple of days we'll be able to release and enjoy actually seeing the crash, right?
Indeed. All right, sorry. Sorry for the tangent. That video was fantastic, and it definitely made us all want some more.
Yeah, it was the perfect April Fool's thing in that it wasn't like some annoying like news that might be true or might not be true, and it was just a thing that you could see on its own and say, okay, yeah, you got me, after 10 seconds or so, and not have to go searching for actual information on a day where every news source is suspect.
Yeah. It is basically the worst day to be on the internet. Anyway,
or the best day,
or the best day, depending on your point of view, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to our next topic, EV tax credit changes. So I before we dive into this, I'll just say, so a good friend of mine just picked up his Model Y. He did it on delivery day, or sorry, the end of the quarter. His delivery day was the end of the quarter at night. So it was like after after they would normally close. He said it was a madhouse. There were so many people there that they were polishing cars and trying to get them all nice, and they're trying to get people to do deliveries. And a lot of it has to do with this EV tax credit. So basically, that was the big rush. That's why he did it. And they basically, even when he first called him, they said some nonsense around, "Oh, you're not going to be able to do your trade-in. Do you still want the car?" And he was like, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "How long do I have to decide?" And they said, "Oh, you'll have about an hour. We'll call you back." And he's like, "Okay." And then they called him back and said, "Never mind. You can do the trade-in."
Holy crap!
Do you want the car? And he was like, "Yes." So anyway, it was chaos. It was hectic. But he did get the car. He was very happy. So he is happy with his Model Y. But anyway, so about the EV tax credits, this is why it was all chaotic. Give us the details, Mike. What's going on?
So we all know that when the tax credits rolled out in the first of the year, a lot of confusion about the tax credits, about who's going to get it, who wasn't, how much, blah, blah, blah. The feds basically said, everybody gets it for now. And come the end of March, we will release new rules that will clarify at some level who can and who won't, get this tax credit. So the clarification at this time from Tesla says the $7,500 tax credit for the Model 3 rear-wheel drive on April 18th will be reduced. Now, they haven't said it's gone away. I have read it's going away, but Tesla's saying it will be reduced. And the smart money says about 50%. And it's all wrapped around the batteries, about where the battery packs were made and imported materials, blah, blah, blah. So I haven't heard anything about the Model Y. Haven't seen anything yet on that. And the performance in the long range seems to be exempt from it also. It's just a rear-wheel drive Model 3, the cheapest one, that's going to take the hit so far.
And what's different about the battery for that vehicle?
It's the battery on the cheapest one has got imported materials that are over the threshold of what the tax credit allows, aka mostly from China. Mm-hmm. And that was some of the rules. There was a big push to try to get the batteries made in the U.S., domestically produced, domestic minerals, all that good stuff. And that was part of the Joe's little push in the back room. He's been quite angry about that. Hasn't been implemented yet. But that's really what it revolves around, is the battery pack.
So, and I don't know if either of you guys know for sure, the model, the standard range versus the long range and stuff, it's not just the size of the battery pack though. Isn't that
It's
isn't
what
one
it's
of them
made
using?
from.
Isn't
So
one of them though is using lithium iron
what
versus
Iron
the
phosphate,
long
yeah.
range
Yeah, yeah.
performance
LiPo.
So
uses
it's
lithium, and the others using was it iron phosphate or
yeah, okay. So
know.
it's
Well, they still have
LFP batteries basically. It's
Right,
the
right.
lithium iron phosphate batteries. And so that's basically the difference. Is in the US they make the standard lithium ion batteries that we use. The norm, there's two different cells that they make in the US, and in China they primarily make the LFP cells, and
Correct.
that's why those cars. Okay, that
the
makes sense.
CATL produced
Which
that
is
as well.
ironic that the cheapest car is taking the biggest hit. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause
is
right
it
now
going to be the cheapest car without the tax credit? That's
it's still
I mean,
it's still a good price. I mean, the tax credit makes it cheaper than a Bolt, but it's still a good price for the car.
yeah, I guess I'm
Just
just
not
I'm
as
just curious. I'm looking right now actually because I'm curious to see. I will admit I did not look at like Model 3s that closely when I bought my Tesla because I knew I
Well,
was going
that's
to get
because
an
you went
S.
for the S with all the bells
Yeah.
and whistles that have the little plaid
But
logo.
That's because you're one of those.
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
With the elite.
What's the current
So-
price?
Slumming it with my Model 3.
So okay, so when I'm on the website right now, what I'm not able to do is I'm not able to select a Model 3 long range.
You haven't been able
It's
to for a while.
grayed out
Yeah,
still.
you can get the
Yeah,
performance,
still.
or you can get the.
So you can do normal Model 3 or performance, and the price difference is $11,000.
Yep.
So
Been that
you're
way
going to
for a
lose.
while.
So how much you're estimating you'll lose off the tax credit? About
Let's say half. So you're losing about $3,200.
yeah.
and
Okay.
change.
So it's still, if you're going for, saving as much money as you can, or if price is really your main driving factor in what you're buying, the standard range then still is a good deal, even if you can't get the full tax.
It's a
credit.
fine. There's nothing wrong with the car. It's
Yeah.
a fine deal. And honestly, the standard range 2023 isn't that much shorter range than the older long ranges. The older long ranges were somewhere in the neighborhood of 280 to 300 miles range. The new standard range Model 3 is somewhere in the neighborhood of 260. So you're not really giving up that much from a couple of years ago.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. So we have the page here. So
Yeah.
you can see, you can't select long range Model.
Just click on the
3
rear wheel.
performance.
What's our See, 272 is what they're saying. You'll never see it, but
Right. Yeah, so I mean, I agreed for the price difference is a good deal. But if you want to maximize how much money you're going to get back from Uncle Sam, then you want to go for the performance.
Yeah, get the performance.
Fair.
But let's be clear. If you do that, you're going to take a hit insurance wise, or at least here in the state of California. When you say performance anything, the insurance companies here go, "Oh my God," and raise your price. So
what's the reason? Have they given a reason for why the long range is still not available? Is it just too many orders, or is it just they don't want to make them?
I don't think they want to make them. Yeah, I think it's about supply and demand for the battery packs.
Gotcha. Okay.
And let's be clear, at 272 miles for the standard range, and the long range is only 305 or thereabouts. That's not a lot of difference.
Yeah. Gotcha.
For someone with range anxiety, it's a difference, but the reality is there isn't. That's not much at all. I mean, my standard range only gets 220, on a really good day, and it's average about 215. So that's how much they've gone. That's how much they've improved in the last several years. It's kind of nice.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean the cars are. I don't know. Anyone that hasn't driven one, the cars are fantastic. They're very enjoyable to drive. The range anxiety, I think, is majorly on the decline thanks to all the supercharging stations and things that Mike has covered many times over on all the new and latest supercharging stations. Alrighty, so for anyone getting a Model S, well, actually the S's and X's don't qualify at all. It's just the Ys. So all Model Ys and the Model 3 performance still get the full, as far as we know, for the near term.
Well, like I said, they're saying as of today, April 18th is the magic day.
The magic day. Okay. All right. So if you want
magic
Model
day.
3 standard and you still want the full tax credit, you've got a couple weeks. Yeah. Good luck. Good luck getting that car. Cool. Thanks, Mike. All right. So next topic, still on Model 3s. Bloomberg has released a new survey to Model 3 owners. In fact, for those that don't know, Bloomberg actually released a survey in 2019, originally surveying, it looks like a lot of people, right? It was thousands of people, basically asking all kinds of questions about quality, reliability, service charging, their autopilot, things they think are going on in the market. And they have some really great charts and things. They've released the results, on like what issues people had, and just seeing like the general health and overall well-being of like how the consumer feels about their purchase.
And so there are 2 surveys right now replacing this. One is for people that took the original survey that you're showing, but there's a second survey for new Tesla owners that had not been part of the original survey. So the questions are slightly different.
Gotcha.
And I suppose the intent here is to see how sentiment may have shifted in the past few years, right?
Or perhaps the build quality has shifted.
Well, it's my sentiment about the build quality or whatever, right? and other things, right?
And other things.
I mean, honestly, just looking at their initial results, I'm surprised at how good the build quality reports are, right? There's very few people that are in the very dissatisfied column for build quality.
I would say most people aren't that critical, right?
Yeah. I think the build quality is probably overstated a bit. I mean,
sure.
And to be clear, I mean, in 2019, you had 2018 was the first full year run of the Model 3. And they were still kind of sort of hand building the cars at that point.
Yeah, their driving enjoyment, of course, off the charts naturally.
Right.
So anyone that drives one, that's the best part of it. That's why you have the car, right?
We said that was February of 2019, right?
I mean that's early.
This first yeah, so that's pretty early. I mean, I didn't get my car till December of 2018, so it's pretty.
This was October. Oh, this is when they released the results. So the survey, I think, maybe went out in February.
I see.
Now there was on the new survey, there were questions about how much of Elon and his various comments would impact you buying a Tesla. They were asking about whether Elon should stay running Twitter or not. They had some very current events in this current gen survey.
Interesting.
So
I mean, let's talk about what some of these questions are. I don't necessarily want to skew the results, so I don't really want to click through this because I don't have a Model 3.
I took the survey.
Right?
I took the survey. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So Mike took the survey. Excellent. So how about give us some of the questions that you they asked on
they would ask things like let's take the charging experience. They would ask what you would expect, do you have to wait often? How was the charging experience? What's your are you satisfied, dissatisfied, with opening the chargers to non-Tesla cars? And on a lot of the questions, they would actually have a line item where you could add your own comments if you didn't think the question was answered sufficiently with a yes or no or a number. They did ask about build quality, although not as much as you think. They did ask about the fun factor. How much fun is the car to drive? Do you enjoy driving the car? Would you recommend the car based on how much fun it is to drive? There are a lot of questions about your perceived enjoyment of the car overall. Do you feel the interior is spacious? Do you feel the style of the Model 3 is still on point? It covered a wide range of bases. And a lot of times the questions would open that way and they would lead back to, would you recommend a Tesla to your friends and family? They asked that several times, pretty much at the end of each module. And like I said, they did ask specifically about Elon. Do you feel Elon should have bought Twitter? And there's like 5 answers to it. Would you recommend a Tesla based on Elon's statements? I mean, they're trying to see if Elon is damaging the brand or if, people will separate that.
Right.
They covered a lot.
I mean, it's an interesting point. What do you guys think? So, Doug, what do you think that Elon is damaging the brand? at this point?
That's a loaded question.
Man, I didn't start with the easy one. Would
It's
you
a loaded
recommend a car?
question,
I
and
started with the Elon one.
and it's a little bit of a delicate question for us, given our position, and Tesla has been nice and less nice to us in the past, and has tried to twist our arms on various things in the past.
So Doug wants to plead the fifth. Got it.
I
Okay.
won't
right.
plead the fifth. I mean,
That's right.
I will say that I don't think it's been positive for the brand. I mean, there are certainly some people that will separate the two, and I, from the beginning, have always separated the two, Elon versus Tesla. But and his level of involvement in the company has, changed over the years. So TMC has been, around since before most Tesla fans had even heard of Elon. Has it hurt? It certainly has hurt. I mean, I think there are more people that are turned off than that are turned on by the various Twitter acquisition. I mean, from my point of view, it's, the whole Twitter thing is a distraction.
They did ask that. They asked that specifically. Is Twitter a distraction to the running of Tesla?
I mean, it definitely is, in terms of just even, your time. The other thing is that his behavior on Twitter isn't positive. I mean, it's funny because or at least from my point of view of running, Tesla Motors Club, this is essentially a kind of a social network. And you deal with certain things, right? You have trolls that come up. You have people that instead of conveying useful information, they maybe spread some misinformation, and then they there are lots of metaphors that probably aren't appropriate, so I'm running through the ones that are a bit more family friendly. Some include a pool, some include the Cheerios, and then something not so nice going in it. But
Calvin.
So his behavior on Twitter is really trollish, which is kind of silly. I mean, so on TMC we'll deal with trolls, and we ban trolls, right? I mean, we want positive, useful information. And it gets harder, but you want a good signal to noise ratio. And Elon, I guess he seems so adolescent on that platform. He just does things for the lulz, and that's fine before he owned it. But then once he owned it, there should be a higher standard. So like, I would never, post misinformation on TMC. And that was like one of the first things he did on Twitter was post fairly obvious misinformation. And that's kind of a damaging thing, particularly if you have a lot of people that follow you and maybe likely are disposed to believe that misinformation. So that, to me, that's a negative thing. So I don't see it as positive. And also, it seems to me he didn't even really want to get Twitter. I mean, he seems like he did it on a whim, and then he tried to get out of it, and then he was essentially forced to do it, and now he's just
stuck with it.
But to be clear, though, it sounds like, so you're saying that Elon currently, it's maybe more negative on the impression that people have of Tesla than positive, but a lot of it having to do with the Twitter stuff. But if you were to like have the choice, you would rather he stop the Twitter stuff and did focused on Tesla versus not have anything to do with Tesla and stay on the Twitter stuff, right?
I would say that, because I think he is, he really moves things, right? So, and it depends how you want to look at it. It might be, okay, he's a kid saying, "Ooh, wouldn't that be cool?" But I'm a kid who says, "Wouldn't that be cool?" And but then he just is actually able to make those things happen. And
without him, Tesla wouldn't be where they are today, no matter what, right? Like, he is a driving force for positive impact.
Whatever you say about the founding of the company, and whatever version he likes to give, regardless, he's been the most important person in the history of the company of Tesla. And that's true of SpaceX and other, great things that, he manages to accomplish, which is a positive thing for society. And I feel like Twitter and social networks in general, maybe reveals the not best side of you, or you don't consider things, you're just shooting stuff off. And I was thinking about this the other day with when we talk about artificial intelligence, and we've been talking about the alignment problem. Like, will the future AI, will that align with our values, and will it be a positive thing for the world? Right now, I'm thinking like, oh, we need, we have an Elon alignment problem. We want to be sure that what Elon is doing is actually positive for the world, and I would argue that he's done plenty of things that are positive for the world, and I would say that even though his goals may be altruistic with Twitter, I don't think the result has been positive. I think it's
Sure.
an increase of arguing and negative things. So
if I could mainstream media pick your statement apart, you just equated Elon Musk to a super genius intelligence AI, and your hope is that he continues to focus on the best of humanity. Sorry, I'm just teasing you.
No, but you make a good point. The difference is already saying what he's been able to do with SpaceX and what he's been able to do with Tesla. He is a powerful individual, and he is able to affect the world. Okay. Yeah. And if AI is able to affect the world someday, we hope that it's in a way that aligns with our values. And so we're just like, okay, Elon, we're hoping that his values align with ours, and he doesn't, it does ultimately more good than damage, right?
Sure. That's fair. What about you, Mike? Are you similar? Different views?
I'll agree that Elon has moved the needle in amazing ways with both Tesla, SpaceX. I think some of his
the views of our hosts are not necessarily the views of Tesla Motors Club.
There you go. I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. I think some of the more true Elon versus the carefully crafted PR Elon came out with Twitter. And as Doug mentioned, adolescent behavior.
Never meet your heroes is what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair.
That's a tough one. That's a real tough one.
And that happened before, right? With the pedo guy stuff and all that.
Oh, right? Yeah. But, I've explained it to some other people that I see Elon much through the same lens I see Steve Jobs. The guy was absolutely brilliant at moving the needle. No question. As a person, the man had some serious issues. Mm-hmm. And had a reputation that was well-deserved of not necessarily being the nicest individual. And we've got Elon, who had this very carefully crafted persona up to the Twitter acquisition and what's happened since then. And I kind of see that as more the true Elon versus the carefully crafted Elon.
That's fair.
Same guy, still brilliant. Yeah. Still, he's going to move the needle. No way. There's no doubt about that. And Doug said, well, we hope it aligns with our values. I mean, that's all we can do is hope it aligns. Because no matter what Doug or I say or you say isn't going to matter a hill of beans to Elon. So
nope, not at all.
Except that if we piss him off, we might.
I've tried. He hasn't banned me off Twitter yet. Yeah.
I do not have a Twitter account, so I don't have to worry about that. But so yeah, I'm not a fan of social media of most types. So anyway, but so let's go back to some of these other questions. So there was, high level, overall recommendation of Tesla and cars. Yep. Do you both, were you in the camp of you would still recommend friends and family? Would you not recommend? How do you feel? So start with you, Mike.
Overall, I would recommend Tesla for a family member, and I have. But I
that hasn't changed. You still even today would recommend
even today. Okay. But I do qualify it a little bit. It depends on who the family member is. There's certain family members that I think the Tesla ethos and the environment that Tesla lives in isn't a good fit. Where I see that defining line is I've got a family member who just wants to drive the car. If the car's broke, just wants it fixed, doesn't want to screw around with anything. And the whole service things side of Tesla would just send them off the edge. They wouldn't have the patience nor the mental side to deal with any of that. So I would, for someone like that, I'd steer them to someone that's a little more mainstream, a little more conventional, I guess is probably the right way to say it. But my family and my extended family, we own, I think, 5 Teslas now in the family. So, there's a good percentage of family that doesn't mind what you have to work with. So yeah, on the survey, I said, sure, I'd recommend them, mostly. I think their overall build quality of Tesla has gone up considerably in the last couple of years. I think it's going to go up more with the new Gigapresses coming online and the fact that they've got much more precision how they put the cars together. I wish they'd use a little better materials on the inside of the car, a little more high end.
Yeah.
But that's an ongoing discussion point. But overall, I recommend them. And it comes down, and we were talking about charging. I've got cars that are CCS only, and I've got cars that are Tesla. And I can tell you from bitter experience that CCS sucks. And if you're not willing to be an early adopter, Boy Scout with CCS, you have no business being in an EV. If you want a seamless charging experience, by and large, get the Tesla. Just that's your choice.
Yeah. I was blown away. So my friend that just got his Model Y 2 days ago, he has no way to charge at home. He doesn't even have the remote charging plug that you could just plug it into a normal thing. Can't go.
Is he going to supercharge all the time?
Has nothing, and yet he has no concern about having this car and charging it. And I was kind of blown away because I mean he lives in Austin, right? He's in the city limits. There's a lot of chargers. He showed, we pulled up the map and we're looking at it. There's tons of places around where he lives, and it's just I can't imagine doing that. I'm not even comfortable with that with mine. But if I didn't have my in the garage, charging.
Does he have a garage?
So he does not have a car garage, right? So that's part of the problem. Is his car would be in his driveway.
So my daughter, who we got the second Model 3 for, rarely charges at home. She's charging supercharger almost every day because it's much more convenient for her lifestyle than charging at home. So I can see it going both ways.
Even in the driveway, which is what I'm doing in Maryland, you can charge. I would say that not to get too off topic, but once you charge at home, it's okay, yeah, let's just charge at home. Unless you get free supercharging, it's and if you have the space and your car is the only car is parking there or whatever, and you can just run it to it. It's just something you don't worry about. You get home, you plug it in.
You plug it in, walk away.
Supercharging is convenient, but it's still something you got to do, and it's unless you have another reason to be there,
it takes 30 minutes.
And it these days it tends to be more expensive than just charging at home. So I would recommend he spend the $200 or whatever.
I talked him through it. I was like, we'll get this set up or whatever. But it was just funny because he picked up the car. I had my charger installed, ready to go in my garage before I even had a VIN. Right, I was, had it way ahead of time because I was so worried about having the car and not having the ability to charge. I have 2,400 miles or so on my car, and every single mile has been charged in my house. I've never used a charger outside of any type anywhere except for my house.
You need to get out more. That's all.
It has 400 miles of range. I don't go that far in a day.
Yeah, even the 120 volts, that adds, depending on what your driving pattern is, that it can actually handle. If you're charging overnight, that's for the most people.
If you got 8 hours to wait, that's great.
It would probably work for me.
Yeah,
I don't commute, right? I just go to the store anyway.
To go back to the topic, I would say regarding would I recommend Tesla or Model 3? Pretty much exactly what Mike's sentiment was. I mean, it's still the best EV, I think, and in terms of going anywhere, right? Going any trip. I've done many trips now, and it's just no worries. It's navigated, it's in there, it's well integrated with your navigation, and so you just put the destination, and it's pretty simple. So I would definitely recommend it. And the same caveats, is service. Now I haven't had to have much service on my car, but when you do need it, it's a little bit annoying. And the worst thing is if you get an accident, because then you're going to be waiting a long time for for parts and that repair. So if you're the,
I don't think that's unique to Tesla right now. I think if you have a Mach-E and you get clipped in the front of the Mach-E or a Ford F-150 Lightning, you're going to be waiting for parts because there's someone in one of those cars.
You're saying other EVs.
Yes, yes.
I'm just saying the general car experience, because most people aren't going to make that allowance.
EVs need to catch up when it comes to service and parts and things. Yeah, it's just
they do.
So that's another thing that's important to point out. EVs from other companies, a lot of times a dealer doesn't know what to do with the car and treats it as a second class car. So so there's a balance there, but that shouldn't be the metric. It should be, what's the general industry, and if you're going to have cheaper cars that start to be Toyota prices, they're going to expect Toyota service, and that's the main reason I hold it.
You bring up a really good point, Doug, that I kind of forgot about, but I was showing a family member how the nav system was integrated on the Tesla, and the fact that you could set up the trip and it will tell you exactly where the chargers are and how long you got to be there and all that. Blew them away. Just absolutely blew their mind, because none of the nav systems, any of the cars they have, does that. So
that's fair.
And they were saying, well, how accurate is it? It's pretty damn accurate.
Well, that's something you can do with vertical integration, and you would hope that the other charging networks would share that information out, like to Google or whoever, and just make that just par for the course. How many chargers are occupied, what's the charging rate, and the car should be smart enough to know how fast it can charge. And it's just a software thing, but you ask a normal car company to do software.
Which
that's why
I was going to say, did you see the news? So this is related, but not to spend too much time on this, but GM is apparently going to be removing
that's a dumb
CarPlay integration.
I
feel like Tesla has paved the way, saying basically, hey, we're not going to support this. And now all the other car companies, when it comes to EVs, are going to do the same thing. And I think it's a huge, overall, I think it's a negative for the industry.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I think it's a bad idea. But yeah, so for those that don't know, GM basically announced they're not going to support CarPlay, Google or Apple, in the future for their EVs.
It's Apple or Android.
Android. Right. Yes, it's Google.
It's the Google Information System, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So there's Android Auto and there's Apple CarPlay, right?
Yeah, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay.
And for years I've been saying car companies should just give up. I had a
pretty much.
I had a BMW i3 and it had that iDrive thing, and it was this little knob you turn, and then
that's awful.
The knob itself had like a little screen, so you could like draw the letters, kind of like you did on a Palm Pilot, and I'm like, why? Like my phone, like a car I'm going to have maybe for a decade, right? And my phone, I'm getting a new one every 2 years, say, and on a faster cycle than that, the software is updating. Just mirror my phone on the car. I'm using my phone for navigation, and my phone gives me all my entertainment as well, all my podcasts. And I love that, because I'll be listening to, I'll go to the store, I'm listening to my podcast, I get out of the car, and now I go to my earpiece and I'm hearing the same story, and I pick up again when I get back in the car. I don't want it locked to the car. I want it mobile with me. And these companies can't really do software, so just mirror the car, mirror the phone on the car. Now Tesla is a little bit of a special case, right? Their software is updating regularly, and I'm getting those updates, from the over the air. I don't need to do anything special, but still, I would like the opportunity. I'm still not using Tesla for my entertainment. I'm still not, even though they have Spotify and everything else, I'm doing it from my phone, because I get out of my car and my life is still going. I'm not spending my whole life in the car. And so I don't really see how Ford, even if they're doing this with a collaboration with Google, can have an excuse to do this. I think it's ridiculous. Even worse, like companies like BMW charging you a monthly fee for the pleasure of being able to use things like CarPlay and Android Auto. It's a real step backwards, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's honestly similar to like the streaming, right? Like online streaming video content. it's gotten worse in modern times than it was previously because everybody's super greedy and they all want to have their own network and they all want to have their own content and they lock everything down. So it's unfortunately, hopefully things converge the other way with the car stuff, but yeah, we'll see. All right, so our next topic that I do want to touch is actually really interesting to me and hopefully many others. Mike is going to give us a review on some new tires, EV specific tires, how
Correct.
they handle, how they're better, if they're better. I'm hoping they are because tires are definitely a sore spot, right? When it comes to EVs, the car itself is so quiet, the darn tires make too much noise. So,
They do.
Mike, give us the deets.
Sure.
What's going on with these?
All right. So my 2019 came with Continental tires, much like just about every Tesla for years. And they were the XL. They had the acoustic foam on the inside that we all know. And they handled well. For me, they lasted reasonably well. I know others complained bitterly about it, but for me, they were fine. And they were noisy. Bottom line, they were noisy. On my road trip to Arizona, I had the misfortune of finding a rather large pothole at speed, which put a bubble in one of my tires. Now, these tires were 5/32. They were not worn out, but they were definitely trending that way. So I called up Discount Tire and I said, hey, I need some tires. Now, for the record, I've got 19-inch wheels. So I was looking for the 235/40 19s, pretty standard size for the Tesla Model 3. And the nice people at Discount says, yes, we've got, 4 of the Contis in stock. Be here tomorrow at 8. So I show up 8 o'clock. And the salesman was actually really good. He goes, yeah, we got the Contis, but we've got these Pirellis. They're a brand new EV specific tire. And what he had, and I've got it here so I get it right. It's the Pirelli P0 AS because they're considered an all season plus electric. And what this is it's a very specific design tire for electric EVs only. It's got a very specific tread design. It's got a new compound. It's actually got 2 compounds, depending which side of the tire you're looking at. And they claim 15% more efficient. They claim there's significantly less road noise, and they claim that they handle very well. So let's address noise. They're significantly quieter than my Contis.
That's awesome.
I thought it was just me, but I let my wife take the car out and I asked her when she got back. She goes, "Oh yeah, 50% quieter." I don't think it's 50%, but it's yeah, measurable. So I pulled out my phone and I had my little decibel app on my phone, and at 75 miles an hour on a medium surface road, I was getting 66 dB. That's 4 less than what the Contis would register. Nice. I mean, that's significant.
Yeah.
They handle well from a drive point of view. You can feel the tire being compliant over bumps and dips and holes in the road. You can actually feel, the tire takes the hit, it absorbs it just like you would expect. As far as rain goes, because I got rained on coming back from Nevada, they did really well in the rain. No hydroplaning that I had, no unplanned skidding. My car's rear-wheel drive, and I tend to drive a little aggressively, but it stayed planted. Now, granted, I didn't try to go out on skid pad and put these, to the skid test, but for normal day-to-day driving, they work perfectly well. The only difference I could see between these tires and the Contis is in high wind condition blowing across the road. The Contis were rock solid in high wind condition. You'd feel the car shudder just a little bit in the wheel. These, the car will drift ever so slightly. There's a little more give to the tire, I believe. And even with autopilot on, you can see the wheel kind of, jerking a little bit to keep the car centered where it belonged. But that's the only real downside.
11.4. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it could be hard to say.
So these tires, so I just have the stock tires that came with my car. I'm definitely
my Contis were stock. My Contis were the stock tire for 19s.
So those tires have a foam in them around the
Pirellis do too.
Yeah. So these, okay, that was my question. So they also have a foam in them?
They do have foam on the inside. I watched them put it in, or I watched them put the tires on so you can see the foam. But the crucial thing on the Pirelli, and they make a deal about this on their website, is they've constructed the tire in a very specific manner to lessen the road noise, and they're using very specific rubber compounds that were designed expressly for use on EVs. Now, the rated lifespan of these tires, according to Pirelli, is 50,000 miles. I doubt seriously I'll ever see 50,000, but that's what they're saying, 50,000. They were also cheaper than the Contis.
Oh, so I was about to ask that. So all this stuff sounds great.
Yeah,
where do they hit you?
Except you got to pay, right?
Yeah.
No, they were $50 cheaper a tire than the Contis.
Wow. Man, that's fantastic.
I mean, they weren't cheap, but they were cheaper.
So how much were they?
Unfortunately, tires are not cheap.
So I paid $298 a piece. And
not bad.
that was kind of the going rate in Las Vegas. I could probably gotten them cheaper elsewhere, but I'm in Vegas and I needed tires to get home. So $298.
And you replaced the full set?
I did all four. Yeah. And the $298 was mounted, balanced, the whole deal. I did pay extra for the road warranty after hitting that pothole. I decided I didn't want to risk losing a brand new tire on the way home.
And that warranty is with discount tire?
This is with discount tire. Any discount tire will warranty the tire for repair or replacement for the life of the tire.
And they seem pretty competent in lifting the car and using the.
So I was concerned. I have my own pucks that I keep in the car just for this sort of thing. They did not put it on a lift. They used a floor jack, just like the mobile service people do. They had two of them, and they had their own pucks already set. And the interesting thing was, in this particular discount tire, they rolled the Tesla in, and everything was already set for Tesla. The sales guy was telling me they do a lot of Teslas. It's a popular car in Vegas, and they knew exactly what to do. They had it torqued to the right spec because I checked. The air pressure was off 3 pounds on 2 tires, 2 of the 4. 2 were spot on, 2 were off. So they must have used 2 different sources. So I corrected that. But nothing wrong with the balancing. Balance is fine. So, and it took an hour and 15 minutes for them to start to finish. So I call that a win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Those tires sound very promising. So I imagine we're going to see more and more EV special tires come out from the various manufacturers.
They haven't been out. They've only been out for about 6 months.
Yeah.
They're a very new tire for Pirelli. Yeah. And I think they're probably one of the first of the new EV generation tires that are I mean, a lot of companies are coming out with EV tires, but I think Pirelli's like first out the gate.
So what makes a tire an EV tire? I mean, how is it different from
tread design, weight capacity? They make a deal that these are kind of like the Contis, where the Conti was an XL rated tire. These are in the same family. They're specifically designed for the heavy weight of an EV. So slightly stiffer sidewalls.
And they're probably more noise focused, right? So
they are certainly noise focused. They make a big deal about that. And they do say the tire has a 15% reduction in rolling resistance. I've not seen much range increase on my car, but then I drive kind of like a maniac anyway. So I'm probably not the best one to test that part of the tire.
Yeah, I mean, you would think rolling resistance would apply to any vehicle. Like everybody wants some better mileage.
Absolutely.
But
although historically, when you got rolling resistance that was low, you had a really hard rubber, which made it really treacherous in the rain. This seems not to be the case based on my experience coming back from Vegas. So
cool.
So far, so good.
Awesome. Well, let us know if you decide that they are not working out in the future. But so far, it sounds very promising. So.
Yeah, I was seriously considering 20s and turbine wheels, but I think I've kind of weaned myself off of that after this experience.
That's fair. Yeah, I guess I'll maybe take a look at them when I get my other rims. Because I don't want to deal with swapping the tire.
Well, okay, you need to decide if you're going to be tracking your car. These are not the tires for you. I mean,
sure. Yeah, I didn't mean for that. I meant for the daily drive.
These are daily grocery getting, road trip type tire.
For sure. Alrighty. Well, I mean, so that's our show, folks. Thanks for Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, thank you to those behind the scenes, Danny and Adam, for helping out, and James. Thank you for all of the feedback, questions, comments. Keep them coming. Thanks. If you like the show, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all those things. We'll have links in the show description for some of the stuff that we talked about. That's it for this week. We appreciate it. See you next time.
See ya.